I'd like to introduce Diane Mayerfield. And Diane, I may regret saying this as an introduction for you, but it is the most sincere form of compliment if your inbox is jammed after this, because Diane is like the one person I go to with any question about sustainability or conservation related activities, or really anything in the state of Wisconsin, because she wears so many different hats and she knows so many things, and she is so collaborative with bringing all of these things together. So thank you so much for being here. And Diane is, I want to get this right, the Sustainable Agriculture Coordinator for the University of Wisconsin, Madison Division of Extension. But as you'll hear, she works with North Central SARE. She has all sorts of new research projects going on as well, and lots of ways and resources to share. So thank you, Diane, for being here. I hope I didn't, well, again, please feel free to contact Diane, because she is that kind of person, as we all are, but we're really lucky to have her in Wisconsin. And with that, I want to share a quote on why conservation is important to Diane, from Diane, of conservation is important to me because the earth is my home, exclamation point, and the home of my children, and now my grandson, and all of us. At an immediate level, playing in nature and eating good food also just makes me happy. You bet. Thank you, Diane. And in true research form as she is, she had a couple questions she wanted, to ask, which, give me a second here, I'll pull it up. Great. All right. The first one is, what is your primary work focus? Just so she's got a sense of who's in the room. What areas do you work in? Just one answer this time. Not surprising, agriculture is winning, but okay. Okay, I think we've got most of us here. So yep, we are a 50% plus agriculture crowd, although I bet if we could pick all the options, people might have picked more there. And another question on Diane will share more about this, but how you work with new landowners. How much do you work with new landowners? Because that, as you'll soon hear about, is a great project she's working on with folks throughout the state, but to kind of get a sense of what folks might be interested in information-wise. I feel like I'm behind the scenes on some game show as results come in. It's really close, ladies. It's really close. Almost equal.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for
that. With that, we can see here, we're kind of across the board, Diane, but everybody's doing something. So terrific. And with that, we'll turn it over to Diane. Thank you, Diane.
Lisa, thank you so much for sharing those polls on my behalf and for that really, really nice introduction. And I don't mind if my inbox fills up, especially if people are tolerant, because it's hard keeping on top of that inbox. I'm going to talk first about a project that I'm involved in focused on new landowners. And it's a USDA funded collaboration between UW-Madison's Forest and Wildlife Ecology Department and Extension. And we are getting advice and input from a range of conservation efforts, including WiWiC. As you'll hear, WiWiC has also influenced our thinking. Our overall goal is to figure out how to improve conservation outreach to new landowners. And that's why I wanted that little poll. And it was really interesting to see that there's most of you are at least somewhat involved in outreach to new landowners. So why are we doing this work? The simple reason is that a lot of land changes hands every year. Over the last 6 years, on average, about 20,000 parcels per year have changed hands based on these records called real estate transfer records. And some of these land transfers maybe don't represent truly new landowners. Some of them are maybe an established landowner who's acquiring additional land. It looks to us like that's about half of those land transfers. But even if there are 10,000 really new landowners every year, that's a significant audience, and it represents a significant amount of Wisconsin land. And a significant number of these new landowners are women, which is, I think, why it's of interest within the context of WiWiC. We ran an analysis where we looked at, we attributed names that, according to the Social Security database, were typically male names versus typically female names. And based on that analysis, transfers that only had male names were about 36% of the parcels. Transfers with both male and female names were about 23% of the transfers, and about 12% of the transfers only had female names on them. And so for the rest of the parcels, about another 30 or so percent, the gender wasn't clear. But so what that means is that for about 35%, and probably about half of the parcels, if we assume the ones where the names aren't clear follow that similar pattern, that a woman is involved in owning and managing the land. And, one of the thoughts I want to stress with you, it's obviously, we know anybody who's joined this meeting probably is already committed to making sure that women-only landowners get the same respect as male landowners, get the information they need, although they may, in some cases, appreciate different types of delivery and sometimes may have different questions. But it's also worth reminding ourselves that when women and men own land together, we should not assume that the man is the primary manager. And in some cases, based on what we heard from this project, I think we need to make an extra effort to engage the women co-owners to overcome these long established stereotypes that, in an equal partnership, the man will take the lead. And I just want to share, we interviewed 13 men and 8 women, new landowners, and just some highlights that we took away from that in terms of trying to figure out what the needs of these new landowners are. One is that there's a lot of variability. There's very variable timing of management. Some landowners buy the land and they are planning to take action immediately. Other landowners have significant management delays. It can be a decade, either due to other priorities for the land, like building a house or an access road, or other life events or constraints on the land that then expire. So there's a lot of variability there. New landowners don't always realize the conservation impacts of some of the decisions they make. For example, we did have some conversations where the landowners were saying, oh, they're not doing any land management yet because they are building a house and just clearing the view to the water. And, not fully realizing that that's a very significant conservation decision where you site your house and land clearing for a view. Relationships with natural resources professionals varied a lot. Some landowners had close pre-existing ties, including family members, to resource professionals. Some connected deliberately based on an internet search or on some of the kinds of outreach that we all do. And some were frankly suspicious of government or any kind of professional expertise. Even those landowners had had at least some interaction with resource professionals, even though it may have been somewhat unintentional. Most cases, those interactions were actually positive, with this important caveat, which is that many landowners expressed some frustration about how hard it can be to find the right expertise or the right resources, that the internet can be overwhelming. And this is a quote from one landowner: when I've actually gone to the resources that they suggest at the state and federal level, I have to admit it's felt a little circular. There's all these agencies that have all these acronyms. I'm like, I don't know who any of you are. And they all kind of say, well, we have these programs, but they don't really apply to you. I wouldn't say I've had any tangible benefit from these relationships yet. So you probably have all had that interaction of a landowner coming to you, the one that I always get, and you'll learn a little more about why, is I want to start sustainable farming. Where can I get a grant to buy land? And I have to say, I don't know. I can tell you where you can get a loan, but I don't know of any place that can give you a grant. But just to be cognizant that, it's a very confusing world out there, what we do collectively. Even though I've been doing this work for over 20 years, there's so much I don't know about what all of you do. And so for a new landowner, it's really overwhelming. And just in contrast, other landowners were very appreciative. One of them was talking about a resource professional they worked with and said, she helped me avoid mistakes. She was very instrumental in me doing certain things and not doing certain things that I had originally wanted to do. So you do make a difference to people. I just want to say this year, we're transitioning kind of from a focus on research and gathering information to moving towards outreach. And next Wednesday, we kick off a 3-week virtual Learn About Your Land course that's aimed at new landowners. Extension has run Learn About Your Land classes that have been focused primarily on woodland management. And in this case, we are trying to focus equally on woodland management, agricultural management, and general habitat protection. So that's one of our shifts. It's also going to be virtual. The registration deadline is this Sunday, March 13th, and I will put the registration link in the chat at the end. I'm not going to do it right now, but just so in case you're interested in joining that, or in case you have landowners you work with that you want to share this information with. And finally, if you are doing programming that is aimed at new landowners this coming year, and would be interested in collaborating, we would love to learn about that and potentially collaborate with you. And so with that, I'm now going to shift hats and move to talking about my other presentation theme. Are there any questions in the chat I should address right now, Lisa? All right. Let's see, how are we? Oh, I see. Sorry, I'm dealing with this. There we go. All right, as Lisa said, I wear a bunch of hats. I'm with Extension. I am at the Center for Integrated Agricultural Systems, but my main responsibility is being the Wisconsin contact for the North Central Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program, which is a U.S. Department of Agriculture funded program focused on sustainable agriculture. And we call it SARE for short, and you can see the acronym there. SARE's goal is to use grants and outreach to advance environmentally, economically, and socially sustainable agriculture. So if you have not checked out the SARE website, there's a tremendous array of resources available there. Books, videos, bulletins, research results, all the grants we've ever funded are available to the public to look at the results, the reports that the grantees have written. And you can see the fairly simple website link there. All those books are available for free on the web in PDF form, and you can order them as hard copies as well. There is a cost for ordering the hard copies. Bulletins are all available for free, and they cover a wide range of subject matter, from cover crop economics to pastured poultry to, anyway, you just take a look at the website. within the state of Wisconsin, well, all the states in the north central region of SARE can apply for and get funding to support professional development for agricultural educators. And we view agricultural educators as we view farmers, with a fairly wide lens and definition. So you don't have to be working with necessarily only with farmers who say file a Schedule F or something like that. If you work with a community group that does food production, if you work with an organization that does, pollinator habitat, that would count as agricultural education in our eyes. So we use that money in Wisconsin primarily for two things that benefit educators like you. One is to provide scholarships for professional development. And heavily we use that to help people who can't get support from their regular employer to do things like attend the Moses Conference or a grazing conference or some other professional development opportunity that their employer doesn't yet recognize is critical to their success. And the other thing we do is we offer mini grants for up to $3,000. And now that's somewhat competitive. And we've just closed our application for this year, but keep it in mind for next year for projects that address sustainable agriculture and that build your capacity as an educator to do sustainable agriculture education. That's what we do within Wisconsin to help educators. Then at the regional level, the SARE program has a whole bunch of grant programs. There's one for graduate students. There's one for projects in professional development. So if you have something that is related to sustainable agriculture that you think it would be useful to share with other educators, that's a grant you could apply for. Partnership grants, and I'll talk a little more about them in a bit. Grants, research and education grants, and those are the classic big grants that typically universities applied for. Now, nonprofits and others can also apply for them, but I will say, perhaps because the funding limit is fairly high, the competition for those grants is extremely stiff. And I typically tell people, if you're interested in working with SARE, start at the partnership grant level, which is a little less incredibly competitive. Youth educator grants, some of you, in fact, the person that I just met one-on-one is doing youth education, I believe. And so there's a small grant program focused on that. And then farmer rancher grants, which I'll talk a little more about. So this is just an overview. Wisconsin's received more than 350 grants, totaling more than $12 million over the 30 plus years that SARE's been in operation. So I want to focus really quickly, and I'm mindful I'm kind of running long, on two grant programs. One is the farmer rancher grant program. Now I know a lot of you also farm. You're educators, but you also farm on your own, and you can apply for this. But also you work with farmers and you know farmers who are doing innovative things, who have questions about what will and won't work. And this program is for you and for them. Farms can apply for up to $15,000 for one farm or $30,000 for two or more farms that are working together on a project. And research questions can range from testing out a new production method, comparing two different production methods or two different varieties or something like that, to also marketing approaches and understanding things in the food chain, in the food system that affect the farm. And SARE funds about 40 of these projects per year. They are competitive. You have about a 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 chance of getting funded, though Wisconsin does fairly well, and I attribute that to the strength of our educator networks. Then the other grant program I want to highlight, and so the Farmer Rancher Grant Program, the farmer has to be the person who applies. The other program I want to highlight is this partnership grant program, where an organization, including Extension or It could be NRCS, although NRCS has not done it because as a federal agency, it typically doesn't apply for other federal funding, but or definitely a nonprofit can partner with 3 or more farmers to do sustainable agriculture research or education. And so there, the organization will be the applicant and will get the funding. So that's a really good way to partner with farmers and do research. And SARE is really committed that farmers have an active role in developing the research. They don't, when they say on-farm research, they don't just mean, oh, the university is coming and using the land and doing what the university thinks is important on the farmer's land. They see the researcher really collaborating with the farmer on what the research question is and how it should be conducted. So here's where you can find out more. I know you can't just click on this, so I will try to put these links in the website, and I am going to exit my present. Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning. This is a funny app, so it's a little harder to exit it. And I think I will open it up to questions now.
And
oh, there we go.
We can circle back to on questions or keep them going in the chat. And a welcome to new folks who have joined our group here. We're going to end at the hour at 11, but in the future, as we did when we did the first one back in October, make them an hour and a half. So we have space. We don't gather that often to be able to do that. So please, Diana and Julie will both be hanging on with questions, but we'll roll to keep going. And so that was our educator resource share. Thank you, Diane. Grants and money, always, always a good resource for us educators. Now we move to the conservation career share, where we'll cover different topics as we roll of where we are in our careers and advice. And a big shout out, thank you to Julie Peterson for kicking this off. She is one of 7 Farm Bill biologists with Pheasants Forever in our state of Wisconsin. Amazing resources. She's up in the Appleton region. I was trying to remember, Julie, like when I met you, and it's fuzzy, it's years, maybe even a decade, but my experience with Julie, as with so many others in this Zoom room, is you ask her for any opportunity to share education, share conservation, and she shows up. So in all the work I've done working with women farmers and women landowners across the state over the years, and if there was ever an opportunity to invite Julie, she came. And she came with enthusiasm and resources and time and all of that. And thank you, because that's what it's all about. The last time I saw Julie was at Farm Aid in September of 2019. I don't know if anyone else was there, when it was in Wisconsin. Remember we went to concerts? I should have stayed longer. But for those who were there, you might remember it was like miserable pouring rain the whole time. I mean, the show went on, it was good, it was fun, but it poured. And I see Julie like across the wet field, and she's like, Lisa, and she comes running, and she's like soaking. And I've never seen anybody more happy in the rain in my life, and that is truly Julie Peterson. So on that note, a quote from Julie, which is actually, she's sharing a quote from Doug Dern, who is an amazing landowner up in Casanova area, who's done a lot of good work for Wisconsin. And the thought is, conservation is important to me because it connects us to the earth and is good for all living things now and into the future. So with that, we're going to, again, turn to the career side. And Julie, if you could kick us off with sharing a little on your own career path. But before we do that, I almost forgot here, we have another last poll here to get a sense of who is in our room. Hold on a second, sorry. How many years have you been working in conservation education, whether paid staff or volunteer? I'm curious because one reason we wanted to do this was when we had this meetup kickoff in the fall, we had a lot of new people working in conservation, a lot of new women even on their first job. So we want to be able to focus on that. So, and that said, we still have a lot of women new on the job here. So great, I will send that out. We have over 26% of the women here are on your first job. under 1 year. Welcome. Give a shout out, please. Like a wave of hands for all of, thank you. A wave of hands and a applaud for all the new women who have started these jobs. We want to, most importantly, keep you there and keep you there with the passion and enthusiasm you have today. So thank you. We also have a solid 41+% of women here who've been doing this for basically their entire career, their entire life. So as we roll, particularly for those mentors in our crowd here, please share in the chat your best piece of career advice or anything along those lines for that 26% and growing of women who are at their first job. I appreciate that. But with that, to Julie, so what, tell us quickly, like what got you first passionate about a career in education?
Yeah, well, thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. Yeah, Farm Aid was so fun. And it was great to see all the folks there. What got me started was when I was really young. I had these so fortunate to have these amazing female mentors, really. My mother, she loved to fish and hunt and garden and carry around a chainsaw to cut our firewood. As well as there was a gal who was a bear researcher and a canoe guide, and they just really connected me to the land at a young age. And I didn't really realize how fortunate I was to have these women role models until I started doing those women caring for the land meetings with you, Lisa. So thank you for helping me to really recognize that. These women were so instrumental in my connection to the land. And, I think no matter where we are in our conservation journey or whatnot, we all share that spark and that passion for, improving our earth and connecting people, and to recognize that we are role models for women, for men, for children, and for communities. So I think no matter where you are, you can, do small things and be that model for others who, interact with you daily. So
excellent. And thanks. Yeah, please keep the career nugget advice. Thanks, Rebecca and Val in the chat. So given that we have this wonderful group of new young women starting in careers, and you've been in the conservation world, you've been at Pheasants Forever for a while. I mean, this has been your life, right?
For sure. 14 years.
Biology degree way back when. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are a couple pieces of advice you'd give, particularly somebody starting out, although it probably would be a good refresher for all of us to keep at it?
Relationships. I think relationships are very critical. And, Diane was saying that relationships are really meaningful with landowners, but to, really be that point of contact for them to help them, with their goals or, with the conservation and the programs, to really kind of get them going on their next steps. But also just building relationships and trust with organizations and, staff that you work with. That's a continual thing. And I think over the years, I think what's big with that is really developing listening skills, not only like the confidence in what I know and what I can share and who I can connect, landowners and people with, but also really listening to where those people are at so that you can do a better job at connecting them with where they're at and moving them along. And then the thing that I need to work on is asking good questions, being that good listener, and then trying to formulate a good question to keep us, keep them moving and keep folks moving on. So that's one thing. There are so many things though, for sure, IDing your mentors. There's a lot of mentors for me that are on right now. But, IDing your mentors and telling them thank you for all they've done. And then also recognizing maybe, for some of the new folks, if there's an area you really want to learn about, find a mentor and ask them, hey, I want to learn more about X, Y, or Z. Will you help me with that? So those are just a couple of things.
Excellent. And a shout out on that Google Sheet in the form in the chat. If you're interested in sharing your contact information, there's a place there for your expertise. So again, a shout out and warm welcome to the new career conservationist folks to look somebody up. Because yeah, you're so right, Julie. That's what it's all about there. What you've worked a lot with women landowners specifically, and I know it's a real passion of yours. But what advice would you give in that realm of working with women landowners specifically, in the sense of things that might be different or different strategies you use in your outreach? Because you've really developed such good relationships with women landowners over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think some of it is IDing personalities too. And you know, I'm currently thinking of one landowner I'm working with who just recently, you know, was kind of inherited / you know, her spouse passed away, and all of a sudden she's in control of calling the shots. And you know, she's so excited about doing things and whatnot, and really wants, actually she credited this network for the support over the last year that she's found with this network. And so it was great. Just last month was out there with her and a bunch of other female folks from Fish and Wildlife and the county, you know, kind of helping her to decide what are goals that she could have now for this property, and maybe some first steps. So, you know, really, you know, helping folks achieve or set goals, but then also maybe starting small with a small project to get them going, and get them well on their way to doing conservation in the future.
Excellent. And please feel free to stick questions in the chat or give a shout out. And thanks again for all the advice folks are throwing in here. Terrific. Now, what has been your biggest challenge, Julie? Because still, universal probably for definitely all state and federal agency offices, and probably good old nonprofits too, they get bureaucratic. They can tend to be male dominated, and we are all working on lean funds. However, or let me know if anybody doesn't experience that. But I mean, how do you put all those things together? How do you get things done amidst those challenges?
A lot of patience. A lot of patience, you know, really, I think that's key, is to have a lot of patience, and then also to really, you know, keep the goal of why you're doing things at the center of your work, to remind you, like, this is why I'm doing this, and to have a lot of patience to work through all the forms and, you know, all the sign-offs and whatnot, but just to really have that goal of, you know, bettering conservation for the landowner, for the earth, to keep that. I mean, most of us that's why we're here, is because we're so connected to that passion, and to try really hard to keep that at the center. I think also too, over the years, I've found that working through my challenges at the time, it's so awful sometimes to work through them, but then reflecting back and looking at, ooh, hey, look what came after I worked through that, you know, is important too, both with projects, and, you know, sometimes they fail, and why did that fail? Failing isn't always a bad thing. So you're not going to always be successful, and to really, you know, look at those failures and move them forward. So.
Excellent. Well, hold that thought, Julie, and we will. So I'm going to turn things over to Esther, who's going to give a couple next steps and other ways to connect and all of that stuff. And everything we'll talk about, Esther will talk about, I'll put in the chat, but you'll also see this in the follow-up email. So plenty of reasons to keep connected there. And then we'll close officially for folks who need to go at the hour, but then continue the conversation with Julie and Diane for people who could stay. But sorry, Julie.
One more quick thing. This picture behind me, if you can see it, is from a woman landowners, and her friend loved doing prairie, and at one of the Women Caring for the Land meetings, her friend brought this lady, her friend, with to the meeting, and we chatted about how she had this small field adjacent to the cornfield and how she would love to put that into pollinator habitat. And so she did. So I wanted to just share that this is out there on the landscape, and she is just loving her pollinator planting.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's you, Julie. Attention to detail, including the background. Excellent. All right. So Esther,
Yeah. Thank you,
lots
Lisa.
of ways we can keep connected.
Thank you, Lisa. First, I'd like to thank Diane and Julie for this excellent presentation. Thank you for bringing resources to everyone and also giving that valuable insights that Julie had working with women landowners. These are things that we really want to note down, especially when WiWiC, we have training the trainers at the end of there's like a goal that we have. And so we would like to collect all these information and then present it out to you. How do we work with women landowners? So that's an important thing that we are trying to address through this program. So thank you for that. As we close, just a few announcements from the WiWiC team here. Please fill out the survey link in the chat to be more involved with the WiWiC program. We have a lot of learning circles, field days coming up. If you would like to be a part of that, please let us know through the survey, and then our regional coordinators will reach out to you. If you want to join our listserv, please add your name in the chat and then say listserv. We will bring. So this is a listserv that we've got running through the past month. Women landowners are connected with educators and they ask their questions, and it's like a forum to reach them. And so if you want to be a part of that, please put your name and the word listserv next to it. So we will then add you onto the listserv. Also, please add your name to the Google Sheet for networking. This will be shared amongst the educators, the people who join into this program. So you're able to find each other and work together, especially at the regional scale. When you want to network, this will greatly help you to be a part of this Google Sheet. And I want to go ahead and share my screen with you. These are the events that's coming up. Okay. So we have a lot of events coming up in the Wisconsin Women for Conservation. Please save your dates. We have the Climate Smart Soil Solutions. We have a learning circle for the different regions. We call the topic is going to be Climate Smart Soil Solutions across the regions. Please save your dates. In the Northeast region, it's on April 26 and 27. If you go on to our website, you can see the actual map and the regions that we are working at. So you will kind of know which are the counties that these are going to be held at. The Northwest region on May 6th, the West Central on May 20th, Southeast on May 3rd, and Southwest on June 3rd. And then we are also having a series of summer camp workshops like the ones we created last year. We are kind of finalizing on the topics, but we always have it on the last Thursday or the third Thursdays of the month. And so it'll be at noon. So these are dates for that. We also have the Educator Network coming up again in October 19th. As Lisa's mentioned earlier, we would like to have it an hour and a half so that we don't run through what we do, but we have some really time for interaction and talking through our thoughts. And we also are planning for the happy hour in the week of July 18th. It'll be in different regions. So it's more like the ones that we held on July 18th of last year in the bricks at Madison. But this year we're planning to have in different regions: Milwaukee, Eau Claire, Madison, and Stevens Point, to be decided for the dates, but we will let you know about that. And then we also planning a lot of field days in August to September, and our fall events will be there from September to November. So that's about the events that we have. We are really working to build these networks, both at the landowner level as well as the educator level. So we hope that you'll continue to associate with the WiWiC program and be helpful to all the women landowners out there in Wisconsin. Thank you. Back to you, Lisa.
Excellent. I just want to give a shout out. We have a date. Our next meetup like this, again, we'll be doing them in the spring and fall, is October 19th, and the registration is live. So please sign up so you've got that on your calendar. You'll again see all this in different forms as well. So a lot of things coming up, bottom line, and you're all on the WiWiC newsletter, so you'll see updates of that from Chris and registrations and things. The survey link that is in the chat, that's the one if you'd want to get more involved. There's information there on some topics we're looking for speakers for, and also to identify what regions you're in so we can better connect you with the regions we're working in. And also, because, you know, we want to have these happy hours in July. So if you're from any of those metro regions where we'll be doing them and you want to just help, you know, host and facilitate, we had a great time last year for our pilot in Madison. Please let us know that way too. And again, we'll have it all. Oh, and Chris is reminding me we need a group photo before we lose people here. So Chris, take it away.